staff, members of the public, or he's not?
Nope.
Yeah. Let me read the council blessing. E mātou e whiriwhiri ana e ngā take kia moa, I o mātou aro aro. I pono ano mātou ka kaha, tono ki te whakapau mahara huapai mō ngā hapori I mahi nei mātou. Mi kaha hoki, mātou katoa kia whai hoa. Ka tōtika ka tā mātou mahi. I mā ti maia ti titiro whakamoa me te hihiri, ka te ia te arahi I roto I te kotahitanga me te aroha. And of course, it is now in our protocols that the person reading the blessing in Te Reo Māori hands the baton over to the next person. And my choice is, I'm honoured to choose Councillor Bernie Randall.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, thank you for nominating me, but and I would generally accept, but I do not believe in blessings. And if I had a choice of voting, whether to continue with a blessing or not, I'd be voting against it. So I thank you for nominating me, and I wouldn't generally accept, but because of the principle of this concept of blessings, which I think should be abolished, I have to decline your kind nomination.
That's a choice that you've made. That's fine. Nobody can be forced to bless other people, even though it's a good thing. So can I ask Jocelyn Pravnov then?
As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just, so that with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in the spirit of harmony and compassion.
Thank you, Jocelyn. The aim of this exercise is actually for the next council meeting. The blessing is taken in Maori. This is to encourage Te Reo Māori amongst us. So, and I had taken some time to practice it. It's just to encourage the use of the Te Reo amongst us. That's what it is. So you can either ask Councillor Sophie Hanford, who's quite good at it, or Korodon. Okay, thank you very much. Next item is apologies. Any apologies? No. Item number 4, declarations of interest relating to items on the agenda. Have not been given any. Public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. None. Members' business. Public speaking time for time responsive. No. Leave of absence. Any leaves of absence? No. Matters of an urgent nature have not been given. Mayor's report. There's no mayor's report. But Jackie Elliott, you had some. You wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate someone. Can you take the floor now?
Yeah, I was checking on my mic. Thank you. Look, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of this table and the public community of our wonderful district in Kapiti to thank the Controller, Mr. Controller James Jeffries, and your entire emergency response team and all the staff that helped with our COVID relief response. We thank you from the bottoms of our hearts.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. This is very good. We now go to reports. The first report, 8.1, process for receipt of Martin Jenkins Independent Organisational Review. Tim Powers.
Sorry, it's been a while. Look, I'm going to take the report as read, Mr. Mayor, if that's
So
okay.
you want to go straight to question time?
Look, there might be just one comment I might make. Most councillors were present at a quite an extensive briefing on that focus primarily on the resolutions that are reflected in this paper. There's one notable addition. We omitted to consider the position of our iwi partners, and I think that was just a straight-out omission. So you will see that I've commented on that in paragraph 13 of the paper, and we have proposed that our iwi partners are treated in the same way as community board chairs, so they would attend the second briefing. So this is the briefing, not the key themes initial briefing, but the second briefing on the 23rd of June. So that's the one matter that we didn't discuss during that briefing. So that I just want to draw that to your attention. I'm quite happy to hand over to the Mayor now.
Right. Anybody with questions? Janet Holbrow?
Yes, just on that, thank you. I just wanted to check, we do have an iwi representative who was allocated to look after this. Have we checked with that individual whether they're happy with this arrangement?
Can I respond to that? I had an extensive discussion with her after the staff alerted me that there's been a political oversight of our treaty partners, which is actually quite serious. I had to apologize for that. I mean, that is my responsibility solely, but I also stand to be reminded, applauded by other senior members of my councillors to say that we have overlooked that. Somehow or other it didn't happen. So I thank the staff for raising the issue. And given that they were involved in the terms of reference that were set up, it is a serious political oversight. I did offer my apology to the three EVs through her to relay that apology. That's why I think we may need an amendment to 28, recommendation 28B, to include the EV in terms of being able to receive the report early, because the treaty, as treaty partners, they set aside from other mainstream organizations or elected representatives even. So, but I will be seeking your leave to do that later. She accepted. She said, "Why am I not surprised?" James Coates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have no concerns personally, but on page 7, bullet number 14, it refers to the report being released to Simpson and Grierson, and then it goes on to say there will be no opportunity for amendments to be made to the report. So the starting line of the sentence is, once the report has been released. Could you just clarify, Tim, for the avoidance of doubt, that there will be no opportunity for amendments to the report, full stop? Like I said, I have no concerns, but some may read that and interpret it differently.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, look, I can certainly confirm that that is the intention. So I don't know if it needs to be reflected in a resolution, but
just through
yeah,
questions.
that's certainly the intention.
Thank you.
This might be an intent thing as well, but point 10 on page 7, the last sentence, last paragraph, that reason by above, the Chief Executive would be entitled to circulate the report among senior staff, and those staff would be able to attend any briefings on the report. Would that be read to believe that councillor-only briefings would be included in that? I would think that wouldn't be the case.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so that was intended to refer to the two briefings, so that the briefing on 19 June and the briefing on 23 June. Those are the only two briefings that are scheduled at this stage, and we're just clarifying. I think there was quite a discussion on this during the briefing, and I think the general consensus that was reached was that, of course, the Chief Executive would be entitled to be supported by senior staff at those two briefings.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for this report. I think it provides great clarity and should ensure that the public know that this report is going to be received and acted upon in a good process that ensures the safety of all involved in the council. I just want one clarification, mostly for the public again, so that they understand who is contracting Simpson Grierson and who they report to.
So Simpson Grierson, have been retained to provide advice to councillors in the event that, after reviewing the report, they identify any particular employment law issues that they think need to be drawn to the attention of councillors. So I would anticipate that Samantha Turner would turn up to that 19 June briefing only in the event that she has identified a particular issue that she thinks needs to be drawn to your attention. My personal view is I think it is unlikely that there will be any such issues identified by her, but we need to leave that possibility open. If she is quite happy that the report doesn't identify any employment law issues, I expect she would advise the council, probably through me, but that would be something that could be tabled at that 19 June briefing.
I think the clarification I'm looking for is if something comes to light and she is effectively being employed by councillors, that she report to councillors, not council. Can you clarify that that is exactly what's going to occur if there was an instance where she needs to come back to us?
You have no financial ability to employ her, so the organisation does. She is your advisor. So that's as clear as I can be. The organisation on your behalf has to contract with her and employ her. So, but Simpson Grierson, through Samantha Turner, is here to provide councillors with legal advice.
Thank you for that clarification.
It's me, yeah. It's Griggs, please. Looking at the paragraph 12 on page 7, the beginning of it says the current resolutions envisage that the community board chairs would receive the report at the same time as councillors and the chief executive, and yet 28B does not include the community board chairs. I think that's an inconsistency.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when I referred to the current resolutions, that was the resolutions set out in paragraph 5. So the resolutions that were passed at the 14 May meeting. In fact, we are taking a different position on circulation of the report to community board chairs, and that's quite deliberate. Community board chairs will receive, but they will attend the second briefing, so the briefing on 23 June, but they will not receive an actual copy of the report until 29 June.
Could you explain why? Because if you go to a briefing, it would be helpful to have the report so that you understand the briefing. It does seem to me a bit strange to get the report 6 days after you have the briefing on it.
So the reasoning, through you, Mr. Mayor, is set out in paragraph 12. Community board chairs are not the employer of the chief executive, and they haven't received briefings on the good employer obligations that councillors have, but in order to ensure that they receive some information in advance of the public, they can attend the briefing on 23 June, albeit they won't have an actual copy of the report in front of them, so they will be spectators, but they will obviously be receiving information in advance of the public.
I've been in this situation before, and it is trying to, it seems to me a little inconsistent to be invited to a briefing and not be able to view the report.
The other alternative...
Even if you're given the report at the beginning of the briefing, so you can follow it at the briefing. Otherwise you sit and people go, oh, on paragraph 7, and you don't know what they're talking about.
Well, the other alternative, of course, is that we could just say that the community board chairs cannot be at the briefing.
Why could they not be
No, that's the other alternative.
Why could they not be provided with copies at least at the briefing and give them back? So at least you can follow it during the briefing.
You mean... So you want a copy of it at the briefing?
I understand the issues that here, and it's this kind of grey area that community boards fall in all the time, which we don't have a resolution to, and that's a much different question to one we're tackling. So I understand that issue, but what I'm asking for is that at the briefing you at least have a copy in front of you at the briefing. Hand it as you walk in the door and hand it back when you walk out the door. I'm fine with that.
That could be an elegant solution. We will consider that.
Thank you. My other question is that if the community board chairs are to be invited to the briefing, is there any expectation on whether or not they should be able to brief their members on what has happened at the briefing?
I should think that, like a lot of briefings, the information is confidential at that stage.
So the chairs can hear it, but the community board, they're not allowed to relay it to the community board members. It's a difficult one. I mean, it's the whole kind of position of a community board, and it's very divisive for the chairs to be allowed to hear it and not be allowed to tell their board members what the situation is. And we have this issue a lot, and I understand there's a problem, but it's kind of when the stepping stone, and that it's hard to keep a community board acting cohesively, but an awful lot of that is because of the rules behind it and the structure. And I just find that this is a bit difficult to actually allow the chairs in and not the community board members, and possibly and the community board members are then treated as the same as the public. And I mean, I also understand that for a briefing you need kind of the not huge numbers, but there are possibilities to explore of, I don't know, for instance, having community board members in another room here, being able to hear what's happening. It's just the plea is that actually this is very divisive for trying to keep together a community board when it's difficult to do that.
Well, Jill, what I can say is I'm glad that you understand that there are tensions in this relationship.
I do.
Yeah, so thank you for understanding that. Chief Executive, you got anything to say?
Also understand your point, and I think you keep missing the point that you're not my employer. Community boards are not, community board chairs are not, and unfortunately you weren't able to sit through the legal briefing, nor was I. But it is not possible to have community board members involved in those initial briefings for reasons of employment.
Look, this is precisely the reason why we have designed a process to ensure that community board chairs are given a certain amount of information, but at the same time we manage the risk to the council, and it's because of those potential employment law issues. If the report is circulated, or any information from that briefing is circulated to community boards in advance of the Chief Executive and elected members being given an opportunity to digest the report and prepare themselves for any questions that the public may raise, then we risk breaching, the council risks breaching its obligations to the Chief Executive. The Chief Executive and councillors also potentially risk breaching their obligations under the Health and Safety at Work Act as well. So that's quite a deliberate decision that's been made to delay circulation of the report beyond councillors.
Jill, to be quite frank, your community board has got particular access to social media which is not quite comfortable for a lot of us.
I understand.
So
that.
this is the chickens coming to roost, so to speak.
Okay, I understand that, but it's, and I do appreciate the issue, but perhaps if we could actually have the report in front of us for the briefing, be given it and hand it back, that would be really helpful.
We'll consider that, I'm sure. Jocelyn Pravnov.
Thank you. So, thank you. So just following up on Jill's comments there, so Tim said that the reason the community board weren't able to have the document is because they were not an employee of the CE. So that also applies to iwi. So what is the difference there, please?
That's a good question, but I said that's why they're not in the first briefing.
But you also said that they were going to get a copy of the report.
Well, I'd like to put that to the councillors that be done because of our treaty relationship. If the councillors are not against it, then that's what it'll be. Chief Executive.
I agree with you, Councillor, and I'm asking the Mayor the same question right now. So even if he puts it to you and you agree, it will have to be taken away for staff advice. I'm not comfortable with that.
Jackie here.
Thank you. I'd just like to address the issue raised by Councillor Martin Halliday on paragraph 10, and we're just going back to that last sentence where it says that for reasons identified above, the Chief Executive will be entitled to circulate the report among senior staff, and those staff would be able to attend any briefings on the report. So I'd just like to ask our legal counsel, in consideration of this, it is still possible, isn't it, for councillors to, at any time we wish, after receiving the report, convene and hold our own workshop to discuss any matters that we wish to raise? That would be our own councillor-only workshop.
I mean, there's nothing to stop us from doing that. In fact, it would be a really good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm concerned that I hear some inconsistencies about process, and I think we've got to make sure, and I think it was just raised by the CE there as well, that we can't make one decision using one set of logic and an entirely different decision using a different set of logic. And I would just like to ask, have we gone through this process with our CE to ensure that he is as happy as he can be, given this is not a Christmas present? Or if it is a Christmas present for you, then you have poor Christmases.
The Chief Executive has just passed me a note saying that he's not happy because he wasn't alerted on this possibility. Okay, but having said that, my response is that the memorandum of understanding between the council and local EV, the partnership, is signed by the governance side. It's not a memorandum of understanding signed by the Chief Executive and the EV side. So there are political overtones on this area, and this crops up quite often. But I'm just saying to the councillors, and given that the Chief Executive has expressed his dissatisfaction, I have to take that into account. And the issue with the EV can be sorted out by myself outside of this process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as a follow-up, should we not be receiving legal advice on that?
I think we don't have to spend more time on this matter. I simply wouldn't make the move to amend it. That's all.
Elegant solution.
Yeah. Bernie Randall.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, this concerns me now because Councillor Pravano has raised a very good point, and the Chief Executive's reply concerns me. We passed the public watching will know that we passed a resolution 2 weeks ago. Now we're revoking that resolution. And I thought this resolution we had was going to be accepted by everyone. Now we understand that the Chief Executive has some reservations about the Council's iwi partner organisation being included in paragraph C, and that concerns me because if there are concerns, it means that we may be going back for a third attempt, and the public watching will be chuckling away at our inconsistency.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'm quite happy with these as resolved. Perhaps you misheard me, Councillor. What I said is any amendments that are now proposed without having been consulted on, I would be uncomfortable with. I am comfortable with these as proposed, otherwise they wouldn't have come in front of you.
Thank you. Just building on Councillor Pravano's point there, so it is a similar vein to there's legal risks to us if the community board chairs have a copy of the report in advance, being they're not employees. So I was hoping, through you, Mr. Mayor, if Mr. Bahau could actually talk about what are the legal risks to us if iwi got this ahead of that in that same sort of vein, and it got leaked. What would be the legal ramifications to council in terms of employment law and health and safety law?
Can I just say the risks are political. From where I sit as mayor, in terms of our partnership, there are political risks. But I have spoken to them and I've apologized for the political oversight. They will be understanding that we have to go through this process. So I think on that basis, we would not be expecting any other trouble. On the legal side, I don't think that you want to respond to that.
Look, I'm comfortable giving a high-level response around what the risks are, and they're exactly the same as the risk of community board chairs circulating the report in a way that that members of the public see the report in advance of the chief executive and elected members being in a position to respond to any public comments that are made. So this is going back to the council's good employer obligations to the chief executive. There's an obligation to act in good faith. There's an obligation to comply with the rules of natural justice. And translating those obligations into something a bit more practical, we would say, or the legal advice has been, that the chief executive and elected members need some time before that report is circulated to public to prepare their position. The risk would be exactly the same if iwi representatives, having received a copy of the report, then circulated that wider. So it's precisely the same risk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would it be possible to mitigate some of that risk through non-disclosure agreements covering that period, or do you sort of view that as not worth the effort for the sort of 6-7 days? Cool. Thank you.
Wanting to speak? With that, would somebody like to move resolutions 27 to 30?
Yes, I would be happy to move the resolutions as they sit, as worded in the papers, 27, 28, 29 and 30.
Councillor Jack Elliott.
Yes, I think that this is not so much revoking, I mean it is revoking, but it's also building on the resolution that was brought as a matter of an urgent nature. which we all welcomed, to provide some certainty in terms of the timeframes around the release of this report, which has been difficult with the extra pressures on the organisation through the COVID response. And I think this is a sensible way to build on it. It includes our iwi partners in an appropriate way and our community board members in an appropriate way, while still meeting our obligations in terms of the health and safety of our organisation and our employee, the Chief Executive. So I'm happy to move them as is. I'm uncomfortable with any amendments at this point because we've been through some serious process in terms of the legal advice we've had around this, and to then quickly move into any kind of amendment at this point without that advice, to me, would be counterproductive. So I'm very happy to move them as is. I welcome the fact that the Chief Executive says that he's comfortable with them as they stand. So I'm very happy to move these today. And I'm not saying I'm looking forward to seeing the report, but I think we can at least be comfortable in some certainty around how that's going to be managed.
McCann.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to agree with what our Deputy Mayor has said as the mover of the motion that this is now replaced. I would like to commend the Council on making sure that we got all our legal ducks in the row and protected our employees. So I think it is a very elegant solution that makes sure that the public can have confidence that this report is treated in the manner in which it should do, and that it has good outcomes for both our council and our people. So I will certainly be supporting the current motion.
Councillor Coates and Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, look, I agree with my colleagues. I wanted to start by saying it was unintentional and unfortunate, the omission of iwi in the recommendations, and in understanding Councillor McCann's intentions when he put the motion was to give certainty to the public, because there was concerns out there around where the review sat, and so there were good intentions behind the recommendations, might I add, through the midst of COVID and via Zoom meetings. So it's not surprising that we didn't get it 100% right in hindsight, but I do want to take the opportunity to thank the staff for picking up on the omission and just strongly acknowledge the role that they've played in picking up on that. And I'll personally contact iwi myself and apologise for the omission. I take that seriously, that it was unintended. But equally, as we've heard, we've got a responsibility not only to Wayne as our employee as Chief Executive, but also to the public. And what I mean by that is that we don't make a unintended or foolish mistake and end up in a costly legal situation because we proceeded and created an employment issue. So I think we're being prudent and we're being sensible. I think everyone's eager to see the report and work proactively together to move this organisation forward, and I'm happy with the recommendations as they are, and I'll be supporting them.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I'm supporting those recommendations, and noting that our previous process that we'd agreed to was without in-depth legal opinion on it, and I'm very, very pleased that I attended that very long briefing and took part in a very, very deep conversation with all of you and with the legal representatives. Thank you very much. And I definitely recommend attending all the briefings that we can, because they are helpful when it comes to making really important decisions at this table.
Anybody else? No. I think we've gone through a long process on this. The key thing is on the 29th of June, the report will be released to everybody. It will start a conversation, and in that conversation we need to ensure that the outcomes are all good for everybody. And one thing that I like to say is that any breach of confidentiality will mean that the liability is the council is collectively. It is important that we give the Chief Executive time to work on the responses collaboratively with the staff, and then be able to actually come out with some positive, because there will be criticisms or analysis that will show some parts of our organizations that needs improving. That's what it's all about. But at the same token, don't think that the elected members are going to escape, because part of the focus will be on us as the governance side, what we have done and what we have not done, what is best practice in terms of our relationship with the organization, in particular chief executive. So don't sleep too comfortably in your beds. Having said that, I think there's nobody else wanting to speak anymore. Right of reply. Deputy Mayor Janet Holbrook is not going to take up her right of reply. So I now want to put the recommendation 27, 28, 29, 30, moved by Deputy Mayor Janet Holbrook, seconded by Councillor Jackie Elliott. All those who are in support say aye. Aye. Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you. We are now into item 8.2, amendments to standing orders for meetings of council. Leanne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everybody.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you all. I'd like to take the report as read, please, Mr. Mayor, and invite any questions through you.
I've got one question. I think it's a question for Tim. You can take the podium if you like. I'm looking at paragraph 12.3. The last part of that sentence says, unless they've been lawfully excluded. I'm just a little concerned that it's like prisoners who are not given the right to vote. If you are excluded from, let's say, the council building for whatever the reasons, does that mean they cannot participate through Zoom in the democratic processes here? I don't want to get into a place where there's a pitfall. We blanketly use this.
I'm actually happy to answer that.
Oh, fantastic. You can sit down.
So the reference, the phraseology is taken from the legislation, and the phraseology refers to exclusion from the meeting. So the meeting would be in any form of attendance. It's not physically in attendance, it's exclusion from the meeting itself.
But do you see the point that I'm trying to make? Tim, do you want to dissect that further?
At the risk of disagreeing with Leanne, I guess the other view that I think the Mayor may be alluding to is that an elected member, it's possible, could have been trespassed from the building, in which case they may be able to attend the meeting remotely. I guess what this illustrates is that there are a couple of different ways of looking at the issue, and perhaps I need to have a discussion and see if we can reach a consensus view on that. I'm not sure it needs to hold up.
Yes, that's right.
What you're considering now, because there will be an answer, but
it's a matter of interpretation which can be dealt case by case. Chief Executive.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I can think of a simple example of harassment. If you had a harassment restraining order on somebody, or whatever the appropriate terminology is, they can't harass you in any means, whether physically present or remotely, virtually present, I would have thought. So we would not want to exclude those options.
Okay.
No one else here would have a harassment order, but you might, Mr. Mayor.
Make sure the minutes mention that. Any other questions? Jackie Elliott and then Martin Holliday.
Yes, so can I take it by the wording in 12.3 5, paragraph 12.5, that the council that footage will be available for public view via the council website for future reference. Being finally, we will be starting to collect some records for future reference on the council website.
Absolutely.
And if so, I'm absolutely delighted and would like to express my thanks. This is something that we've been working for a number of triennium. Thank you.
There was a previous case where recorded or material that was videoed in the council was then used by another party outside and misinterpreted. Can you remember that, James?
It was edited to not reflect the comments of the individual at the time.
And I think this has happened in Parliament of recent times. Do we have a position on that, or do we need a position on that? Tim? I mean, there's intellectual property rights over it?
Yeah, look, I think a person editing a video clip is potentially breaching someone's privacy and or copyright. They're using it in a way to misrepresent that person's position. I think there are legal remedies available to the councillor, I guess, in that sort of situation.
Just additional, given that this is intellectual property right of council, is there such a thing as intellectual property right for council in this matter?
I would have thought subject to it being a political exercise, that the council, if it felt that a councillor had been misrepresented in a way that damaged the council as a whole, I expect that the council might want to take some action. It gets into a little bit of a difficult area where it's a councillor's feels that they've been misrepresented, but that's not a view that's shared amongst fellow councillors, and then the issue becomes, does the council want to spend money trying to seek legal remedies, on behalf of that councillor? I think, it's difficult to talk about this in the abstract. We'd need to have a particular fact situation in front of us to form a view on whether that was something that the council felt strongly enough to take action on behalf of an elected member who had been misrepresented.
There must be some kind of best practice around councils in the country, because some councils are removed at this point already, and how do they safeguard themselves? Do we know? No, we don't. Okay, fine. Thank you, James.
Look, I'm absolutely in support of the footage of the meetings being made available. I think it's very helpful for councillors and the members of the public. I had raised concerns around the very question that's been raised around the legal aspect in terms of footage being doctored. Hasn't personally happened to me, if I could make that really clear, but I was an elected member at the time when footage was altered to represent the opposite position, or the way that it was worded definitely projected a different tone from the particular elected member involved at the time. So my question, Tim, is as an elected member, we often don't choose these fights or challenges. Are we expected to legally represent ourselves if we are grossly misrepresented? And I use the word grossly because I'm not. I get your point around if one councillor is in disagreement with some others and they feel that their view hasn't been taken. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a very black and white misrepresentation to skew or distort a particular comment or a view. Because I certainly don't want to be legalling up myself if someone was to do that, not expecting it, but it would be helpful for elected members to know. Sorry, team. Like I said, I'm happy for the recordings but I think it's rightful for elected members to know where they stand and what. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I've got a lot of sympathy for what you're saying, and you know, on the face of it, what you're saying makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't the council step into the shoes of the particular elected member and take on the set of proceedings? I guess the note of caution that I would, want elected members to be aware of, and certainly the Mayor will be aware of this case. The Mayor down in Invercargill took defamation proceedings against a fellow councillor, and I think ultimately he succeeded in those proceedings, but the particular councillor that he was suing wasn't in a position to meet the cost award, and now Mr Shadbolt finds himself in a battle against his council, trying to recover the monies that I guess it must be the legal fees that he spent, and I'm not sure there's going to be a happy outcome to that. So that's the only word of caution I would ear here.
You're right.
Yes, thank you. I'll make a comment in debate because it isn't a question.
Oh.
Oh, no, it's sorry, it's lit mine up.
Righto, and actually after all that, it's nothing too extravagant. I just noticed the definition of electronic link to mean both audio and visual link. I'm just wondering whether, from a consistency perspective, in those clauses, 12s, there's some reference to an electronic link and some reference to an audio visual link. Would be better off just having consistency one or the other rather than the both?
Again, the phraseology reflects the legislation, which does refer to both in tandem. So my recommendation would be that we go with the wording as it is in the legislation.
Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, just building on that earlier discussion around the use of these recordings, presumably because they are official information, so presumably there is some sort of fair use of them that's allowed. If a councillor delivers an absolute belter of a speech during debate, are they allowed to use that clip, or where would that sort of sit? I mean, we know, Councillor McCann delivers brilliant speeches, so... Is it? I have not seen no speeches in standing orders, actually. I haven't seen an exclusion to that. You can't have a predetermined one, but you could deliver off the cuff an absolute brilliant one. So would that be permitted?
Look, we're getting into a discussion around what's...
Point of order, I think the member is in La La Land.
It's referred to as moral rights under copyright, and there's a certain amount of latitude, and it all comes back to the issue we were discussing about whether that clip fairly represents the matter that was discussed. So when it's used in a way to that doesn't actually convey the message that was intended, then you run the risk of breaching what's known as moral rights. Having said that, then there are exceptions around satire, so it's quite a complicated sort of area to make any general pronouncements on. Really got to be viewed on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
So we can expect towards the election period some blinding speeches and later on. Spontaneous. I've got via the brief.
It's Griggs again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. I think this is great to be able to move forward in this way to incorporate this for the council, and I quite appreciate that council is more important to address than the community boards at this stage. But I note in paragraph 11 it says existing arrangements for the community boards would remain in place. Could I ask if we actually intend to extend this to community boards? Is that planned? Because it's quite useful. We've had the situation where people have had to connect remotely into a community board, and the way the standing orders are at the moment, they can't vote. It would be very useful if we could actually put this in the schedule. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly staff can look into the options that could be available for community boards. Obviously, community boards meet in a number of different venues, many of which don't actually belong to council, so there could be financial challenges involved also, but certainly staff can happily look into that for you.
Thank you, that would be great.
There doesn't seem to be anybody else speak on this. Can somebody move by Councillor Gwyn Compton? Seconded. James Coates. Right of intro.
I just want to thank staff for the work. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're being recorded. I'll clip this onto my Facebook page later. No, I just wanted to thank staff actually for the work that they've done in making this possible. I think this is something that the community's really wanted, just for the ease of access to records, so they don't have to keep on emailing through and asking for audio transcripts. So, you know, I think I'm a big advocate of ensuring that council's more transparent and more accountable to our community, and making, you know, the ability to actually go and review a meeting as easy as possible for our community is a big step forward in that regard. So I just really want to commend staff for their work to get us to this point today. So thank you.
Well, look, following on from that impressive right of introduction, I would like to just clarify, I guess, why I raised the questions. As Councillor Compton has said, I absolutely support this. I think it's fantastic that members of the public can watch at the moment, that they can go back and view the footage later. As elected members, we can refer to particular decisions, and people can watch the debate when we're going out on a topic like the annual plan or a project that we're signing off on. The concerns I raised is just out of experience. I've seen where not another elected member, but a member of the public has doctored recordings, audio recordings, and grossly misrepresented an elected member. And I think it was unfair. And my questions, and I appreciate the answer, Tim, and it was more so that we know where we stand, that by the sounds of it, we face those legal costs ourselves. That if someone does misrepresent Councillor Compton's impressive speech, that he knows that he'll have to legal up himself to defend a misrepresentation of something that he said. So I appreciate the reply, Tim, and I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Yes, I just wanted to build on Councillor Compton's blinder of a speech to extend the thanks. We'll just limit it to this paper, shall we? So I just wanted to thank the Democratic Services staff for the support they've given us with the technology the whole way through this challenging time. It's been absolutely brilliant. The first council meeting we had online, we insisted that the public be allowed in at the last moment, and they managed to do that for us, and it's just been really outstanding. And to have this available at the first council meeting back, I think is just a real achievement. So thank you so much, Tanika and Grayson particularly, and the IT staff.
Thank you. Yeah, I just head down to note the same thing that Janet Holborough has just mentioned. Thank you to Democracy Services for allowing Low Carbon Kāwhiri and the Kāwhiri Climate Action Group to speak at such short notice. I know that they really appreciated that, so I'd just like to convey my thanks on behalf of them for allowing for that to be able to happen. And obviously, yeah, very, very short notice, and we made it happen just in the nick of time. So, and I also think this is really exciting for young people as well, having these available and having that opportunity to participate remotely. Imagine we might have classes joining us. We might have people watching live. We might have people being able to have discussions and contribute that way. So I think it's exciting from that perspective, because obviously the way that meetings are held at the moment does restrict some participation, having them here and at this time of day, obviously young people being at school. So I think that this is an exciting thing to build on, and see how hopefully we can increase participation and encourage more participation in what we're doing here. So yeah, thank you.
Councillor Holiday.
Just building on what Sophie was saying, with regards to the elderly as well, it's just gives them opportunities in retirement homes, or people that are less mobile than other people, to be involved in these processes as well. And I think we should be doing some things to promote that side of things as well. It's great to see that inclusion.
So it's an aid to follow for the elderly to fall asleep.
Yeah, sorry to have a second step. I just thought I'd...
Councillor Elliott.
Sorry, look, same thing. There's been many years trying to get this organised and across the board, and meanwhile watching other councils and their communities benefit from the availability of meetings. Even things as simple for us as learning standing orders and seeing how they were used right and wrong, and we were able to just go online and look at other councils' meetings, but we weren't able to look at our own. So this is really, really good, and thank you very much.
Yes, certainly this is something that Councillor Elliott has been trying to get going for a long time. So just building up from Councillor Hanford's comments, so under engagement planning it says an engagement plan is not needed to implement this decision, but potentially we could look at some comms and engagement around how people could avail themselves of this technology, and particularly I'm interested in those educational purposes, really valuable I think.
Anybody else?
I just wanted the last word. Good job.
Sorry, you don't have the last word. The blue said it. Councillor Compton. You fantastic. Recommendation 20 has been moved by Councillor Compton, seconded by Councillor Coots. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Do you want a break? Do you want a break? 10 minutes? 10:40.